can you make a comment about the design principle? Will it be no, it won't be a principle, it won't be a theory, it'll be the rule. Within your limits of interpreting the other two, what is the relationship between the one side and another?
Well, I tried to keep the back side more, or the secondary side more simple than the front side, and I used it mainly to emphasize this L that was in my original big idea, this dark L that runs through here, and to carry the void that's defined by these planes and these planes through to the back.
Would it be fair then to say that if this were being proffered in an art gallery, you would actually show this face first because it becomes a precursor for the opposite side then? This gave you the clues and the cues. Mm-hmm. You rotate it on the Lazy Susan and Shazam, there's the full flower?
Yeah, it could be. It could be, even though these were developed after this side. It just kind of worked out that way.
Did you see what one critic just did? How do you respond to that?
David.
No, wait a minute. This is legit, Mark. What is that a fairly strong part of your scheme?
It is.
This is the suspended element, and what is the convention? A. So that would be the B, right? Does that then suggest that maybe that's the Genesis chamber for all Thor? Is it you have four inside corners at the outer extremities?
Right.
Okay, two minor, two major, right?
Right.
Can any of these structures that are contained within the defined bays
Go up.
extend over to the ends?
That is theoretically possible.
Okay, that's all.
I see you're still trying to figure out this project.
No, it's ongoing, Thomas. I mean, you never really get on top of it. And just about the time you think you are, it skedaddles away and goes back into the shadows. Have both of you been attentive to these critiques that preceded your turn? Okay. Would you like to participate in your own critique on the basis of what you've acquired from all this accumulated readings here this afternoon? What do you see as the one strong idea or the thesis in the task that is the genesis factor? And where are the elements that support that development and arrive at something that's coded because they're consistent, and where are the inconsistencies? Where do you see the brilliance in your work and the inconsistency? Because we've already established that consistency is not numbing. Consistency is what liberates the idea and gives it presence. So what do you got?
Okay.
Is that fair, Victor?
Yeah, that's fair.
As far as weaknesses, I had trouble with it.
Not necessarily weaknesses. That has pejorative implications. Where are the inconsistencies that keep it from being as fully developed as it could?
This void that kind of goes through this direction.
Okay, now, what is the technology? What is the technology that is inconsistent so that it's not as cogent as it could?
Because it just has a different overall feeling. This is heavier and thicker, more massive,
Right.
and this is thinner and lighter.
And if you wanted to diminish, just as a case in point, without going through all of it, if you wanted to diminish what was heavy, what had weight, as you went to the absentee bay, how would you do that?
Well,
Be obvious.
I might have started it a little bit sooner, maybe. I would want to keep this heavy because of the big element that runs through the back, but maybe more of a transition from the heavy to the light.
I'm looking on this right.
Oh, you mean not having anything like that over here?
You want to diminish it. So this would be of one magnitude, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This would be less.
Okay.
This would be less. And that would be less still, instead of going with accumulation where the height is a constant down to something which doesn't exist.
Okay. I can see that.
Anything else come to mind immediately? Where's the good stuff that makes it possible for you to get the variation and conform to the limits of the project without being intimidated? One of the subtleties, and I've been around this for a long time. Tom asked me, I won't go into that. I said I've been around this for a long time, so it's called experience. But one of the fascinating elements that can bite you in the ankles is that the transparent plastic is a big reveal because it's interruptus. And yet, is it negative or is it positive? And it comes to mind because you're trying to use this dog leg as a way of moving through or past or beyond the transparency, aren't you? And then you tried to do the same thing here, right?
Right.
But you didn't do it there, which means the whole idea of a lap or exchange. These two guys are lap joint, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Butt joint.
Okay.
So within your joinery, this is making a gesture at continuum through the separator. Difference between separation and isolation, in part because it's transparent. And you're trying to do the same thing here, correct? That's supposed to be a line, not this line.
Right.
And you have these other opportunities, so that when you get to that point, we're talking about the center object as opposed to a center bay. All of this can begin to celebrate what is a separator, and yet now it's been turned into a joinery device. Where's the B? Where's your B?
Well, the B got a little bit lost, so what I tried to do was to go from, because these panels were all facing this direction, down this way, I tried to make that into a transition to turn it this direction.
Okay, and why doesn't it work? No, try it again.
Is a
Okay.
rhythm that goes, it's
If
A,
should
A,
be
B,
different
A.
than B?
To be articulated. And architecturally, what value is placed on the bridge? It goes A, A, B, A. What's the value on the bridge, on the B?
Well, the value,
Architecturally.
architecturally, it's the first notion of transition, of connecting disparate elements.
How do you do that? How do you do that?
How do you do that?
Because when you're starting to play games with architecture, you have three A's which gang together as a sequence, and they're going to definitely give you an understanding that they are, culled from the same source. And if you want the B to be an accent within that system as opposed to an isolator or a separator, does it become Genesis? Or, as she's trying to get at, to keep it germane, Link?
It could be both. It could
I'll
be,
buy that, but what it ain't is an isolator, as is bridge.
Bridge, depends what kind of a bridge.
I'm just a dumb architect, Marvin.
Yes,
it's a connector.
connect. You talked about lap joint.
Yeah.
Well, the students of architecture should learn about various joints in industry. One of them is lap. And should they or should not they? You're educated.
I'm talking about lap joints,
You're
not lap
lap
dance.
joint over here. But you said this is lap joint, she said yes.
Well, but she said yes, but it doesn't exist there.
But because she doesn't know what lap joint is.
No, she's talking about the B. Where's the B again?
Well,
Okay,
it's meant to be this transition from this to this.
Now,
So
how,
it's right
how,
up there.
point to the B joint, just so that, I'm sorry, the B bay.
Well, there isn't a V-bay, it's kind of what happens across this plane, or this panel right here. So it's like this element right here and this element right here.
But what
It's
your
not-
eye reads the most, because it is engaged first with what is foreground. That's middle ground in this game, and then there's something behind that guy. Wouldn't it make sense if it's an extension beyond this point to have the lap joint or the extension joint, which you have here? Look here, this is in an extremity, isn't it? All right. It's attached to an object, and it thrusts inboard, but there's interruption here, correct? There's interruption here. This is son of projection, but it's less in magnitude. So there is the, oops, sorry about that, the interruption here. This is contiguous, that's adjacent. If the idea is to get across this guy, then there has to be, just as you have it here, some of this on that side and some of this on that side. I'm not talking about this particular configuration, but the presence of the mass so that it can project into the void. Is it an analogy, or is it so fundamental to the basic structure of the system that it cannot be ignored? Well, you don't need to go A, B, A, and restrict it to music. That's a perfectly legitimate harmonic and rhythm and cadence for any work of architecture. And would you say that is a complexity that grows out of the first condition of interplay? Definition, if it goes A, B, A, then B is either a bridge, which would seem indigenous to the task, or it's an interruptus, which doesn't seem to be relevant to what you're trying to achieve. You don't like it there, Mark?
Yeah, I'm interested in to see if your drawing is correct.
What, you mean to 4 bays?
4 bay.
That's
All
because
right.
those are the ground rules of the
That's the
game.
ground rules. I'll buy that, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
But it's a transparent solid.
It's
A
a,
transparent solid, should it be black? Why is it not light gray like that?
It's black.
Light
because
gray,
it's
light
object
gray
is
like
black.
that.
It's because the
Right. Thomas, hold on, why don't you rotate that thing, since Tom wants to use dichotomy and comparison and contrast. No, rotate it so that it's concomitant with the orientation of the other project. Which is your master side?
that conception.
Can you indicate why? It ain't mandatory, but it would be helpful.
Why I wanted to do that?
Right.
You want to get just.
Can you see any interface between your project and the one next to it? And if you can't, continue to respond to Thomas's direct question.
I wouldn't make that
No,
assumption.
you're off base on that one, Thomas.
Yeah, well,
If you had a chance to sit here all afternoon, I think you would have
I
found
have
that
a
quite so.
question.
To whom are you addressing the question? Or is it just a rhetorical question that's
No,
thrown out on the
it's
floor?
not rhetorical, it's a very, very factual. You know, you see something which could look good, and I see a different leaf which could look good. It's a different taste, right? You don't have
See,
a
I
red dress, you know, so white, black.
So Tom,
There's
you
no
know,
logic about it.
okay, Marvin,
So I'm talking about defending these students for, that not every move should have a reason for it.
I think once you've tapped into your, to the idiosyncrasies that keep us safe from ever being, at least in our time, from being subjected to control by the computer, then you get a dialogue, and you should be able to put, if you have intelligence, you should be able to put reasons into words.
I caught it on my coat. Sorry, I'm looking for your plate.
You can buy them a beer afterwards or something.
I'll buy you two.
Well, Tom, while you're up there, why don't you pursue, and I'm thinking both for this individual student and the masses behind us, go with the prospect of hierarchy, or from what hierarchy can be pulled in this kind of an exercise. No, there ain't a void in between, Bennett. There is a transparent solid. How much of that subtlety or nuance in methodology was prevalent over the whole course of development. When you say change, it behooves you to categorize change according to variations between strategy change. No, once you had a strategy, you were encouraged to keep the strategy, were you not?
Yes.
And that became the constant in the development. Then the strategy gave way to tactics. You could take these tactics on your strategy, any one of you, and play this game over the whole course of your lifetime and never come up with what would be the perfect solution, though you could have realization of the ideal in many different categories. So the strategy was a constant, to use the lingo. The tactics and the techniques were about as loosey-goosey as you could get, as long as you didn't lose the sense of order. And that, I think, is the one strong idea. Fair enough?
Yes,
The
absolutely.
particulars then are what? Limitless.
Yeah.
They go to infinity and beyond.
Well, he wasn't allowed to do that, but he did it anyway.
Yeah.
Well, see, the whole business of allowed and unallowed and following the rules is a bunch of bullshit. Nobody says you can't do anything. If anybody in this project has a good enough reason and a good enough direction, reason to do what they're going to do, nobody's going to keep them from doing it.
But you have to play the game within the ground rules.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you step out of bounds and some guy in a striped shirt blows a whistle.
I
So,
know.
Well, that first drawing is a crib anyhow. That's one of the early studies for Willerstein.